Hi, in this video I'll photograph a product against a white background. I'll use a single speed light, a camera on a tripod, and of course some kind of a product which you cannot see at the moment. For software I'll use RawTherapee and Photoshop, and I'll show you how to go from the raw capture to the finished photo in a few simple steps. Let's go! In terms of the setup, it is a very simple one. We have the product lying on a white sheet of paper, and then we have the camera on the tripod looking down to it. Also on a tripod, a separate one, is a speed light. And the speed light is just pointing upwards towards the ceiling, so that when the light bounces off the ceiling, it kind of rains down onto the product, creating a nice even lighting with very little shadows. Okay, we have the product in its place, and we'll head over to the computer and take the first photograph. So I'm using Digicam Control version whatever, 2 maybe. Let's take a shot. Everything is set, ISO 200. Let's go to fit. And this is the image using the setup. So it's a white background, and we've got the product in the center, and everything looks good except of course this white is not real white. This is probably some kind of gray but not completely white color. So we'll take one additional photograph without the head. So I'm just going to take it away, and making sure that my camera is no longer on autofocus, otherwise it will not be able to focus. I just take 1 second, one final photograph. So just the background, just white background. Okay, this is it. That's all we need. 2 photographs. We can now switch off the camera, the speed light, and we can continue editing. So here we are inside of RawTherapee, and we've got the first image which has the product, and the other one is just a background. So I'll use the background as a flat field. If you don't know what a flat field is, it basically tells the computer that everything is equally bright. So, normal cameras will have vignetting towards the corners. And maybe if you're photographing something white, as we have done now, it will not be completely equally white, because maybe you have, some specks or some, scratches or something. So you may have, uneven lighting in any case. So you can see here the bottom part is quite a bit darker than the top part. So the brightness isn't equal across the entire frame. So if you apply the same image, this image onto itself, you will tell the software that everything is equally bright. So you can do that by going into the Raw tab. You come down to Flat Field, and where it says File None, you have to click here, and then you find the image, which is 0002. And when you do that, as you can see, everything turns equally bright. It's not white per se, but it's just equally bright. So now you have, if you switch it off again, or you go to the history, you can really see that you have these dark corners, you have the vignetting going on. When you apply the flat field, that disappears. So what we'll do, typically you don't do that. You don't apply the flat field onto itself. You apply the flat field onto a real image. So let's open this image. So you can also see that you have these darker corners, especially here towards the bottom of the frame. So we'll do the same thing. We'll select the flat field, and we'll select that same file, the 0002. And you can see everything has become pretty much equally bright, except of course the shadows. This image doesn't look very good yet, so you can fix it however you want. I think right now the luminance is around 79, so that's this number here. When I go over, hover over the image, 79.4, it's around that 79 something across the entire frame. That's because of the flat field. If you do not apply the flat field. So let's go back to the original image. The luminance was 76.9 at this place, and you see that it is 75 now, 74, 72, 71, 70, 68, 67. So it's really getting quite a bit darker. Here it's 66.1. So if you apply the flat field, you will still be around the 79 mark across the entire frame. Of course not here where you have the shadow of the object. That's not going to be affected. Okay, so you can fix this however you want inside of RawTherapee. I'm just going to go for the auto-matched tone curve on the exposure tab. That makes it look a little bit contrasty, but you can see that now the luminance is 93.2 and it stays around the 93 mark in all corners. So it's pretty close to white. You can make it even a little bit wider. It's not really necessary. Let's go and take a look at the product. Maybe we need a little bit more contrast, but not a lot, just a little bit. So when we do that, the luminance is still 93 point something in the whites. I think I need a little bit more contrast, but you can do that. You know, that's your normal editing process. If you want a bit more contrast there, you can do that. You know, maybe you need a little bit more. Let's do something like this. So make that's a bit too much. Maybe something like that. Okay, good. So I'm now going to process this file. It will just be a JPEG. I'm not going to bother with a TIFF. I'm just going to click the processed button and it will create a JPEG automatically. Okay, let's find the JPEG and use it in Photoshop. All right, so this is the location where the two raw images are stored. When you convert an image in RawTherapee, it goes to the convert. Well, you can set that, but I let it go to the converted folder, and it's now a JPEG. Let's get this to Photoshop. There we go. And this is it. This is the image that we have with the almost white background. It's not completely white, as you can see by adding a solid color, not a pink color, but just plain white. You know, F's across the board. Okay, you put it as the background, and let's change the canvas size. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Doesn't really matter how big it is, but you can really see that the background being white doesn't match, you know, the background that you photographed. So this is not yet completely white. So one way to do this is, well, of course, you can take your pen tool and have fun cutting out the object. I'll just take my color picker, make sure that I'm on the layer with the actual object, and I'll click somewhere here or here. Doesn't really matter too much. You may want to pick one of the darker areas, so not one of the brighter areas, you know, something like there. Then you add a solid color. It will automatically take the color that you just picked, so just say OK, and then you change the blend mode to divide. And there you go, it's completely white. So if you click it on and off, you can really see that the background, the gray, kind of light gray background is disappearing when you do this. Sometimes you will still see a faint line where, you know, the background is, I think I still see a little bit here. So there's still a little bit of a faint transition here. You can make that go away by double clicking on the solid color, and you just make the color a bit darker. So you're dividing by a darker color, and that makes it really go away. If you go too light here, if you put the brightness too high, make sure that the B is ticked brightness. So if you make it like 96%, you can really see the difference. You take it down to 92%, I think it's completely gone. I cannot see it. 91. If you go too far, you will start eating into the actual object. So if you take it really down, you can see it's now starting to eat away the shadow, and it's making the entire object go very, pretty bright. So you don't want to go too far. You want to go just far enough so you don't see that transition anymore. And where is that? Yep, it's back 95%, 94, maybe somewhere around 90%. So let's say OK, and there you have it. So you have a complete white background, and the object is affected slightly, but not tremendously. What will be affected in object is the white stuff like this brand name. So you can see if you switch it on and off, it turns brighter. So sometimes with some objects, especially metallic objects, polished ones, shiny things, things that are even shinier than or brighter than your background, you might get into a problem and you have to mask it out. But for this object, I think it's okay. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you can apply this technique for some of your images. Thanks a lot, and see you in the next one. Bye.